Going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA.
Putting the brakes on some of Trump's tariffs for now.
The auto industry takes a temporary detour. Tonight, the latest development in the back-and-forth cross-border trade war. Good evening. Just a day after sweeping 25% tariffs were imposed on Canada, today a concession was granted.
A 1-month exemption for the big three automakers. But it's not enough for Premier Doug Ford, who says Ontario's retaliatory response will still go ahead. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has been following all the developments on this story and joins us live with the very latest. Siobhan.
Well, at first blush, this sounds good, right? But the Premier has concerns, and it puts the auto industry in a new place of uncertainty. It's a move that could save some auto plants from going dark in a matter of days under the weight of tariffs. From the White House, a limited lifeline.
We spoke with the big three auto dealers. We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd.
The heads of Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors asked for that meeting. But the future is far from certain.
Round and round we go. Where we stop, nobody knows.
Auto manufacturers and parts makers are trying to understand if the exemption applies to them.
There is no way to audit for compliance if you don't know where the parts come from.
The Premier digging in on retaliatory measures.
There's no such thing as half pregnant. You know, we either have zero or we're gonna get on with the show here.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick called Ford yesterday, urging him to cool it.
I spoke to the Prime Minister earlier. We're on the same page, zero tariffs, and we are not going to budge.
Lutnick continues to maintain this is not a trade war, but a war on fentanyl.
We need to see the Canadians and Mexicans put long-lasting protections in to protect America. Not this, oh, I'm doing a lot of work for the last 3 weeks. Give me a break.
On social media, the U.S. president said he told the Prime Minister in a call that efforts to stop the flow of drugs aren't good enough, saying the call ended in a somewhat friendly manner. The message from Donald Trump to the big three automakers for the next month.
He told them that they should get on it, start investing, start moving, shift production here to the United States of America, where they will pay no tariff.
It's an expensive, disruptive proposition Volpe insists can't be pulled off at the drop of a hat.
So he's talking about a 10, 15-year rebuild and turn of the industry at a time when it's under its greatest attack ever by the Chinese. He will bankrupt one of those American car companies if he forces the industry down that path.
Unifor, which represents thousands of auto workers across Canada, calls this latest tactic extortion. They're calling on all levels of government to keep the retaliatory measures in place. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Meanwhile, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister had a phone call with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. She then spoke to reporters in Toronto about the ongoing effort to get the Americans to stand down.
We will make sure that we continue to defend Canadians' interests in the context of this unjustifiable trade war that was launched by the U.S. And also, we'll make sure that we will never negotiate against ourselves. And so we will be there to stand strong. And it's not true that we will go through this psychodrama every 30 days. So our goal is to make sure that we're having conversations to bring back much more certainty.
Julie met with Rubio in January in Washington. Today, she told the Toronto Board of Trade that it's not clear what Donald Trump wants and suggested that only the American people can change his mind. She insists it's Canada's job collectively to make sure that our neighbors south of the border realize the tariffs are a tax on them.
Also tonight, uncertainty on another front. City-run daycares and day camps could be canceled during March break if no deal is reached. The latest on the city workers' labor dispute still ahead.
But first, we turn to a dramatic scene that unfolded early this morning in Toronto's Yorkville neighborhood.
Intense flames tearing through a series of townhomes, the massive blaze burning a path of destruction. CTV's Rahim Ladani joined us live from the scene on Schollard Street near Bay tonight. Rahim.
Michelle and Nathan, firefighters are still putting out hot spots this hour. We've also seen hydro and Enbridge crews on scene. This was a very significant fire, and it has now left a massive void here in this neighborhood. Video captures flames furiously tearing through homes and smoke billowing into the night sky as a fire erupted in the Yorkville neighborhood around 4:30 in the morning Wednesday.
We saw the flames. It was just horrendous. They beckoned us to come out quickly, so we did, but the overhead wires were already sparking, and the firemen and the police were already backing away and anxious to get residents all out.
Firefighters arrived on Scholars Street between Bay and Hazelton Streets. The older buildings adding an extra layer of complication for crews, at one point using 23 firefighting apparatus to contain the 3-alarm blaze.
A lot of these are century homes that have been renovated into businesses. And with that, there's voids with new construction, and the fire gets trapped in some of those voids, and we can't hit it from the exterior.
The fire ripped through 6 townhomes, which had been converted and were under construction. While no one was injured, some residents were evacuated, and nearby building owners are trying to figure out how this happened.
From my conversations with the police, with the fire department, is there was a building to the east of my building under construction, and that building caught fire, and the fire spread to 4 or 5 buildings. That's as much as I know.
The heat from this fire was so significant that not only did it reduce these 6 townhomes to near rubble, but everything adjacent was also severely damaged. From a blown-out car windshield to building facades visibly discolored and recycling bins melted, officials say there has been a significant financial loss as they turn the investigation over to the Office of the Fire Marshal.
They'll start their investigation once we've got the fire completely knocked down and out. We'll be here all day, likely, and we'll probably be here for a day or 2 afterwards while they do the investigation.
As you heard the acting deputy chief just say, they are going to be here for a couple of more days. As a result, Scholars Street remains closed to vehicle traffic between Bay and Hazelton, as is a large portion of Hazelton closed to vehicle traffic. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Raheem. Still ahead, continued violence in the towing industry. 2 shot in a tow yard, followed by a tow truck driver wounded at a gas station, all in one night. What is going on?
But first, waterways in the city are posing a threat. This was the Humber River today, still frozen, but there is a risk of flooding with more melting and additional rain on the way. Special weather statement remains in effect at this hour. The thaw-freeze cycle is a real concern tonight. Even our view is a concern with the water there. It really speaks volumes. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. What are you seeing, Lindsay?
Well, Michelle, we've got rain tonight, and we could be looking at some snow for tomorrow. Lots to get to, so let's get right to it. We've got rain impacting areas from Oshawa over toward Newcastle and Port Darlington at this hour. It was heavy, but we're seeing some sun now for the west end of the GTA, at least briefly before it fully sets. On the backside of this low, we are expecting some snow, and we'll get to that. There is also a widespread fog advisory now in place around the Golden Horseshoe, just outside of the city of Toronto. It is mild right now, 6 degrees in Toronto, Oshawa, and Hamilton. It's 12, though, in Delhi, and 11 in the Welland area. Here's overnight at a glance. 2 degrees is what we're forecasting overnight. Then that temperature will continue to fall into tomorrow. That's when the snow is set to begin. There are widespread winter weather travel advisories now in effect and a blowing snow advisory. We'll give you an idea of how much snow could fall here in Toronto coming up. For now, Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, down to a labor dispute that could shut down city daycares and camps just as March break is set to begin.
The union representing thousands of City of Toronto workers say they're prepared to strike on Monday if a deal isn't reached. CTV's John Musselman has the latest on the negotiations.
Both sides say they will keep talking, but if the city and its inside workers can't get a deal done by the weekend, 39 city-run daycares and all city-run March break camps will be shut down. 27,000 inside workers will be in a legal strike position at 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, March 8th. The union now says it will extend the deadline to Monday at 12:01 a.m., but it claims the city needs to get serious at the bargaining table.
This is not just our fight, it's yours too. It's about the services every one of us relies on. Services already stretched to the breaking point because of years of negligence.
The union claims city workers are underpaid and undervalued, and they can barely afford to live in the city they work for.
Continuing to push for an agreement that doesn't meet the unique needs of these workers who work for the city is unacceptable.
The bargaining battle comes just a couple of months after the city's outdoor workers ratified a contract that netted them nearly a 15% increase over 4 years. City Manager Paul Johnson remains hopeful a deal can be reached at the bargaining table. Here's a look at what the city is offering the inside workers. Nearly 15% over 4 years, nearly 4% in year one, and that's nearly double the rate of inflation, and eliminating minimum wage jobs for all workers.
All I can say is just know that we are working very, very hard. What we brought as a negotiating package to the table, and what we are prepared to work around the edges and reorient in whatever way makes sense, I believe is a very fair deal.
The city says parents will get a refund if March break camps are canceled. Shelters, warming centers, emergency services, water services, and long-term care homes will remain operational.
The best agreement comes through mediation, comes through a negotiation. So I do know they are continued the negotiation, and I hope for a good outcome.
Both sides are committed to bargaining right up to the deadline. John Musselman, CTV News.
And while they could be impacted in the event of a strike, residents of North York and Scarborough can now register for the city's spring recreation programs. There are nearly 134,000 spaces available in more than 15,000 programs, including options in arts, fitness, wellness, and sports. Registration is done online or by phone. People in the rest of the city were able to sign up yesterday.
We turn to new developments in Toronto's ongoing and violent tow truck wars.
There were 2 shootings last night connected to the towing industry, and we're learning exclusive details tonight about what happened. CTV's Allison Hurst joins us live from Weston and Lawrence tonight. And Allison, you spoke with a man who witnessed the violence.
Yes, and that witness told us that he heard someone screaming last night. He looked out the window of the office and saw a man hopping on one leg, yelling for help and for someone to call 911. While in Car Wash Bay 4 at this gas station in Scarborough, shots were fired, hitting a tow truck driver.
They came out of nowhere, tried to attack him. When he was running, they shot him in the back. I think that happened.
Arun Rajiv was working in the office near Lawrence and Warden about 11:20 p.m.
What did you hear? What did it sound like?
It sounded like continuous rounds, like not a pistol.
Bang, bang, bang?
Yeah, continuous, like, yeah.
Police say a man in his 20s was hit, suffering non-life-threatening injuries.
When I was applying pressure on it, I just said him, relax, the cops are on the way. I asked him, who shot you? Why did they shoot you? He said he don't know anything.
Police say the suspect fled in a vehicle.
I listened to a car going outside, didn't see anything.
A crosstown near Weston Road and St. Clair just an hour before a shooting at this tow truck yard. The door window smashed out, held closed by cardboard boxes with other bullet holes in the entry roof. Police say 2 people were shot, a man in his 50s taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries and another in his 20s expected to survive.
It's been an ongoing battle, of course, with peaks of violence, and this is one of those peaks.
Toronto police say there have been 13 tow truck-related shooting incidents already this year.
Ontario's been trying to regulate this industry, but it's been a very difficult thing for them to regulate and really control.
In January, there were 3 tow truck-related shootings in Scarborough in just over 24 hours. The brother of one of the drivers spoke to CTV News, saying luckily he was wearing a bulletproof vest.
Nobody should have to go to work every day and fear for their life and have to wear a bulletproof vest just to go do your job. There's something definitely wrong with that.
The president of the Professional Towing Association of Ontario, Gary Vanden Heuvel, says this is unheard of in most of the province.
The majority of the towing industry, they take on the regulations, whether they like it or not. They're there, they take them on, they accept it, and they do their very best to follow the rules. This is just an outside sanction from within our industry that don't really care.
Police have not said whether the 2 shootings last night are connected in any way. Police are asking anyone who may have witnessed anything at either location or who have dash cam footage to contact them. Reporting live from Warden and Lawrence, I'm Allison Hurst. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. Peel police have broken up what they're calling a prolific theft ring targeting LCBO stores. Police say the effort targeted 50 LCBO locations in several jurisdictions between August of 2024 and February of this year. In some cases, it's alleged some suspects would distract or monitor employees while others stole goods from restricted areas. The alleged sum of products stolen stands at nearly $238,000. 5 suspects were arrested and charged with offenses, including theft over $5,000. Police say they're seeking 2 other men as this investigation continues.
Financial fraud continues to be a major problem in our city. It's costly and devastating for victims, and it's why Toronto police are sharing a warning about the top scams out there right now, in the hopes of protecting people and their money. CTV's Janice Golding reports.
The scams are more sophisticated and more of us are falling victim. Toronto police saying they received almost 17,000 complaints last year. That's more than 45 a day.
In Toronto alone, over $368 million was lost. $638 million was reported lost to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre in 2024.
During Fraud Prevention Month, investigators are reminding people of the 3 R's, namely asking you to recognize, reject, and report fraud. Be wary of online offers and invest in person or through a financial planner when you can.
There's a globalization of fraud, so we know the bad actors around the world, and they launder money at such quick speed. So with the digital economy happening, it's very challenging once you send that money in crypto or the wire transfer.
Fraudsters are taking advantage of technology simply because there's so much money to be made. Of the top frauds in Toronto, online investment scams are the most successful, followed by account takeovers, confidence scams, cryptocurrency scams, and identity theft. While anyone can be the victim of fraud, police note seniors seem to be particularly vulnerable, losing the most money, about 33% more than the average victim. Officers say it often starts as a romance scam where fraudsters reach out via text or email, build a relationship with the victim over time, and once they have a trusting relationship, the scammer will introduce a lucrative investment opportunity.
Once a victim invests, they may show fake profits to encourage more deposits. But when you try to withdraw your money, they disappear along with your money.
And try as they might, it's hard for investigators to stay ahead of criminals.
They're sophisticated, they evolve, they change. When we zig, when the banks zig, they zag. So whatever parameters and security measures that we've all put up, they are quicker and they're able to get bypast them.
Police believe $1 trillion was lost to fraudsters worldwide last year, and that could just be the tip of the iceberg. Investigators estimate only 5 to 10% of victims report the crimes due to embarrassment. Janice Golding, CTV News.
Police have filed more than 300 charges in a major child exploitation operation.
Just to illustrate the magnitude of this type of crime, the NCCC received 118,162 complaints and reports of suspected online child sexual exploitation offenses between April 1st, 2023 and March 31st, 2024. That number represents a 15% increase compared to the previous fiscal year and a 1,278% increase compared to 10 years ago, when the center received 8,578 reports in a single year.
More than 100 arrests have been made and dozens of victims identified. Police say 37 children were safeguarded from harm, but there are still hundreds of ongoing investigations. The charges include possession, distribution, and accessing child pornography. Project Steel involved officers from the RCMP, the OPP, Peel Region, Durham Region, and the Sûreté du Québec.
The parent community at a school that serves students with special needs is fighting for funding.
They're concerned cutbacks could be coming to the classrooms their children rely on every day. CTV's Natalie Johnson reports.
Good morning, Alexa. 13-year-old Alexa is attending school virtually today, included in the classroom conversation, even while using a ventilator. Will you ring your bell? Alexa was born with a rare neurodegenerative disorder, and when she was set to start kindergarten, her parents discovered Beverly School, a TDSB facility that serves the most vulnerable students in the system.
We just felt so welcome there, and it was just such an amazing feeling to know that she was in a school that had an elevator, that was accessible, just like the basic needs met. Everybody asked about you.
When she is well enough, Alexa attends the downtown school in person, joining friends like Felix in a specialized and supportive setting.
Schools like this are the only places that
these kids can go to.
It's a little bit of a beautiful secret in Toronto. It's like finding a little world that maybe you didn't know was here in the community.
But as the country's biggest school board readies to balance its books, there is concern among parents that there could be staffing cuts to their beloved Beverly, jeopardizing its future.
Every 3 or 4 years, because the board has to cut its budget, they look to close congregated sites. And supposedly they talk about integrating them into the schools. Not possible.
That's the fear, is that schools like Beverly are going to be non-existent. And it's really scary.
The TDSB telling CTV News that it is still in the planning stages for next year and staffing discussions are ongoing. Quote, any potential changes will take into consideration the unique needs of the Beverly school community, specifically the needs of individual students, classroom structure, and the number of students to ensure we are maintaining the appropriate level of support and care.
Every year we go through this, and every year it feels like more of a challenge.
The parents of children requiring around-the-clock care now fighting for funding.
Having to deal with the school budget issues every year, it just seems like it's not fair, and we're kind of sick of it, and we're exhausted.
Desperate for their school support system to be spared. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
Greenland's Prime Minister declared today that Greenland is ours and cannot be taken or bought. His comments followed this from Donald Trump during last night's address to the U.S. Congress.
We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
The U.S. president made a direct appeal to the island citizens in his speech, but Greenland's leader says they are neither American nor Danish because they are Greenlandic, and he insists the United States needs to understand that.
The tariffs also feature prominently in Trump's address to Congress, with the U.S. president saying the duties will make Americans rich again. Meantime, today, Canada formally requested consultations with the United States at the World Trade Organization. Bilateral talks are the first stage, but if no solution is found within 60 days, Canada could request a judgment by the WTO's dispute settlement body. Ottawa has announced 25% retaliatory tariffs on $30 billion worth of American imports, an additional $125 billion in 21 days if necessary.
Meanwhile, Mexico may be contacting Canadian officials about the tariffs that are now impacting both countries. Mexico's president said today if the duties continue, she will reach out to Canada and other nations. And if necessary, her country will look for other trading partners. Claudia Sheinbaum calls the imposition of U.S. tariffs a very definitive moment for Mexico. She is tentatively set to have a phone call with Donald Trump tomorrow. So far, Mexico has not imposed any retaliatory tariffs. It will announce its response later this week.
In Rome, Pope Francis did some work and spent much of the day in an armchair as he received treatment for double pneumonia. The pontiff is stable and did not have any new breathing issues, but doctors say his prognosis is guarded, meaning he's not yet out of danger. He'll once again receive oxygen overnight via a small nasal tube after it was removed during the day. The Pope has had to miss a number of church events, including a mass today that he usually leads on Ash Wednesday. He took part in the service in his hospital suite as Lent begins, which leads to Easter Sunday, 40 days from now.
Also tonight, the side effects of Trump's trade war. We explore how tariffs are a prescription for pain in the healthcare sector.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, have you received your $200 rebate check yet from the Ontario government? There are still many people who haven't. The Finance Department is blaming a technical glitch. We can tell you what to do to get yours. That story is just ahead.
Well, the temperature is going to take a tumble through tomorrow. By the afternoon, we should be at about -2 degrees. We will have very strong winds. And yes, we're forecasting some snow, maybe a trace to 2 centimeters of it here locally. Heavier amounts the further north you travel outside of the GTA. Travel could be tricky, but then things settle down in the long range. We'll take you through the 7-day forecast coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
The Ontario government spent $3 billion sending rebate checks to Ontarians, and most people received them before the provincial election.
Now the election has come and gone, and some taxpayers say they are still waiting for their checks, or they received them and they bounced. Pat Foran has an update on Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Michelle and Nathan. Many people who received their $200 rebate checks have already spent the money. But there are still some taxpayers waiting to get their $200, and the government says a technical glitch is to blame.
Just after the holiday season and right before a provincial election, the Ontario government said Ontarians 18 years or older who filed their taxes would get a rebate check of $200. Parents were to get it as well for each of their children to help buy food, gas, and pay the bills.
Our government will provide every Ontario taxpayer a $200 tax-free rebate.
The checks were sent out early in the new year, but some taxpayers say they have yet to receive them.
I've been waiting quite a long time patiently for this check.
Ken McPherson of Brampton wants his $200 check, and no one can tell him if it's on the way.
I don't know whether there's a glitch with the Ministry of Finance or what the problem is.
I was like, yeah, I got my payment. It's $200 is $200.
Kavita Ramsawhoop of Toronto says she was excited to get her $200 check, but after she deposited it with her bank, days later she got a notice the item was returned unpaid, and she was charged a $7 service fee.
Everything was correct in the check. My name, my address, everything was correct. So why was it returned?
CTV News reached out to the Ministry of Finance, and a spokesperson said, as of February 25th, approximately 96% of checks have been issued, with approximately 12.8 million checks sent out to date. We are aware of an issue with a small number of checks not clearing due to technical errors. There have been cases of deceased people receiving checks or wrong names being used. According to the ministry, if you didn't get the $200 check or there is a problem with it, you should contact Service Ontario at 1-833-351-0409. McPherson says he feels like he doesn't exist and just wants to know if his check is in the mail.
All I want is somebody from the government to contact me and let me know we've looked into it. You can expect your check.
And if you contact Service Ontario about your rebate, it could take up to 30 days to have your case reviewed. If the problem is you changed your address, you'll have to wait about 4 to 6 weeks before your rebate check arrives. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, we had quite a bit of rain today, and it's still not over. And of course, with all that rain, brings concern with the melting.
Oh, the melting, the puddles out there, it's messy, it's not ideal, and it's concerning to think that we're going to go on a temperature roller coaster.
We are. We're going to cool down into tomorrow, so that will create slippery spots and some freezing once again. You know, with the rain and the mild weather today, we also have some fog out there, and the City of Toronto just added to the fog advisory that was issued by Environment Canada. I want to show you what it looked like a little bit earlier today as that rain fell this morning. Yeah, some localized flooding, ponding at the very least on roadways. We had to make sure that our storm drains were cleared, and it was tough because there's been a lot of snow, as you know, in recent weeks. So those snowbanks were high. The rain, it started to accumulate. The snow melted. We're continuing to watch rivers and streams over the next couple of days, too, as they are expected to run high and fast. And yes, ice jams are still a concern in many areas. Big picture look at the satellite and radar. There are severe thunderstorms happening stateside. There is snow happening in northern Ontario. We are still getting some rain around the GTA. But again, at this hour, big concern is the dense fog, locally dense and near zero visibility happening in some of these areas right around the Golden Horseshoe GTA, just about everyone under a fog advisory. There's a couple of different things at play here. So we are still under a special weather statement for today with the mild temperatures and the rain. Many areas now also under a winter weather travel advisory, and this is for tomorrow's active weather. There's also a blowing snow advisory the closer you get to Georgian Bay and Lake Huron. Travel expected to be tricky there tomorrow with these winds coming out of the west and the northwest, gusting upwards of 60 kilometers per hour, maybe to about 80K at times. That is going to usher in some colder air. It's also going to change our precipitation over to some snow. So there's 7 a.m. tomorrow. You can see A burst is expected around the GTA, widespread in nature. It does taper off, but I think that over the next couple of days here, especially into Friday, we could get into some snow squall activity impacting areas like Barrie, over toward Peterborough, and perhaps the east end of the GTA as well. But let's bring it back to tomorrow. Perhaps a trace to 2 centimeters of snow in Toronto, likely a little bit more the further north you go toward Owen Sound and Muskoka. And that snow is likely to be wet. Overnight tonight, 2 degrees is what the temperature is going to be. I don't want to call it the low because we're actually going to dip lower than that as we're waking up tomorrow morning. That could introduce some mixed precipitation with the temperature around freezing. Then in the afternoon, we fall further to about -2 degrees, holding on to the chance of flurries, but then we clear Thursday night and into Friday. We're going to see a return to some sunshine for Friday. Saturday is a colder day, 0 for the high, a few flurries in the forecast. Then things really do settle down as we make our way into Sunday. Look at the sunshine through the early part of next week. Hey, Tuesday, we might even climb to a high of 11 degrees. So the back and forth temperature swings are going to continue. That's the weather. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Also tonight, Trump's tariff power play could be felt on the ice. The warning from NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman about the Canada-U.S. trade war. That's coming up.
The tariff situation is fluid and confusing. So many sectors have been thrust into a period of uncertainty.
And that includes healthcare. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan explores how manufacturers of medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and patients could be impacted on both sides of the border.
From monitoring newborns to hip replacements in seniors, Canadian medical devices are a vital part of healthcare in North America.
The U.S. is a major export market for medical device manufacturers here in Canada. And so we're concerned about them on that front, and American patients, of course, as well, who will be impacted.
But medical devices for diagnostics, medical imaging, PPE, and such are not on the list for U.S. tariffs right now, although some raw materials such as steel or certain plastics may be affected.
We've been lobbying the federal government and provincial governments to ask for exemptions for medical devices because we believe healthcare is too important.
The U.S. market represents more than $6.8 billion in sales for Canadian medical manufacturers, and MedTech Canada, representing about 120 Canadian companies, also fears retaliatory tariffs by Canada.
Nearly 40% of the imported medical devices that are used in our healthcare system come from the U.S.
What is currently on the U.S. tariff list is Canadian-made pharmaceuticals.
There's, many different products that are made across Canada that go to the U.S. and they cross everything from infectious disease products to blood pressure medications to, a lot of even just active pharmaceutical ingredients that they use to make other products. And so it's a pretty wide swath.
An estimated $6 billion worth of pharmaceuticals, but so far Canada is not expected to introduce tariffs of its own. Canada does have alternatives for getting medical devices, Europe and China, but Frenette says it's difficult to make a sudden switch in suppliers. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
As Ontario grapples with an ongoing measles outbreak, Niagara Region Public Health is reporting 3 new confirmed infections. Officials say the cases are all in children who had not been vaccinated. They're now trying to identify anyone who may have been exposed to the virus. That warning includes visitors to the Medcare clinics at 387 Scott Street in St. Catharines. Anyone who was there on Sunday between 4:20 and 6:20 p.m. is advised to watch for symptoms for up to 21 days. Health experts also advise residents to get up to date on their measles vaccinations.
The nonprofit behind Sesame Street is dealing with a few bumps in the road. Sesame Workshop is cutting staff as the future of the company's main TV program remains uncertain. A spokesperson told The Hollywood Reporter the unspecified number of layoffs were necessary in the face of a changing media and funding landscape. Production is still set to begin next month on season 56 of Sesame Street, but distribution plans are up in the air after a deal with HBO wasn't renewed.
Disney is setting the stage for a new theatrical adaptation of a hit musical film. The Greatest Showman was a 2017 musical movie featuring Hugh Jackman, Zac Efron, Zendaya, and several other stars, and it tells the story of circus ringmaster P.T. Barnum. Disney announced today it's working on a stage version of the story. It'll be presented in Bristol in the UK next spring before potential transfers to London and New York.
The latest home sales numbers are in. February proving to be a slow month for the GTA's housing market. After the break, what's at play and the average price of a home now.
We all know that what the president says today may change tomorrow.
Updating our top stories, Premier Doug Ford says he's not considering any changes to Ontario's counter-tariff plan in the wake of another shift in U.S. policy. With blanket tariffs now in effect on Canadian goods, the Trump administration says it will exempt vehicles manufactured by Ford, GM, and Stellantis for 30 days. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and U.S. President Donald Trump discussed the trade standoff in a phone call today.
Firemen and the police were already backing away and anxious to get residents all out.
Residents in Yorkville were forced to flee their homes early this morning as intense flames tore through a line of townhomes under construction. This happened around 4:30 a.m. on Scholar Street between Bay and Hazelton. No injuries were reported, while the cause remains under investigation.
So I do know there are continued negotiation, and I hope for a good outcome.
And contract talks between the city and its 27,000 inside workers are coming down to the wire. CUPE Local 79 will be in a legal strike position as of 12:01 a.m. Saturday. But the union says members will not walk off the job anytime before Monday. A work stoppage would see city-run daycares close and March break camps canceled.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app.
We have more on Trump's one-month pause on auto tariffs. B&M Bloomberg's Mirella Fernandez has details on how the markets reacted.
The U.S. president is giving Canada another one-month reprieve. This time it's for the auto sector. Only yesterday it was hit with a 25% tariff, which forced Canada to retaliate with tariffs of its own. But today, Team Trump announced a carve-out for vehicles. The Canadian auto industry is tightly integrated between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, and vehicles and parts crisscross the borders all the time. Oil has taken a nosedive. At one point, West Texas Intermediate was down 4.5% today, approaching $65 a barrel. That is the lowest it's been in about 2 years. There are questions about the future of demand because of energy tariffs, and the market's also reacting to OPEC's decision to increase output next month. The trade war and other uncertainties also playing out in Toronto's housing market as well. Home sales dropped almost 29% from January to February in the Toronto area. It is the steepest decline since the first month of the pandemic. Recent interest rate cuts were expected to lure buyers back, but the possibility of a recession is tempering interest. Let's take a look at some of the closing market numbers for today. The Canadian dollar ended the day up at 69.72. West Texas Intermediate down, ending the day at 66.31. Western Canadian Select also down. The Canadian grade of heavy oil closed at 53.96. As for the stock market, the TSX Composite in Toronto closed up today by almost 300 points to 24,870. Those are your business headlines in the B&N Bloomberg Newsroom. I'm Mirella Fernandez.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
The Canada Revenue Agency has been accepting online tax returns since February 24th, but some filers have found they can't click the submit button. Officials say this issue stems from canceled changes to the capital gains tax. They were set to take effect, only to be deferred until 2026 by the Department of Finance. The CRA says anyone reporting capital gains or losses won't be able to file online until the relevant forms are updated, potentially by mid-month.
February was another slow month for home sales across the GTA. The Toronto Regional Real Estate Board says just over 4,000 properties exchanged hands, marking a 27% drop compared to February 2024. New listings were up 5.4% year over year. Experts say mortgage rates are still high enough to keep prospective buyers on the sidelines, and many may have pressed pause on their home purchase plans.
Certainly, I would expect to see more sales, in April, May, and June than we're seeing right now. But I'd be saying that every year. I think the real comparison point is where we are relative to 2024, and that will really tell us, to what degree, tariffs have had an impact, and to what degree we're starting to see the market pick up as a result of lower borrowing costs.
The average home sale price also ticked down slightly in February compared to last year to $1.08 million.
As Toronto continues to struggle with a housing crisis made worse by lack of affordable rentals, Mayor Olivia Chow spoke with tenants today who are part of a program that provides support to renters. The city's multi-unit residential acquisition program provides nonprofit organizations grants to purchase residential properties and preserve them permanently as affordable housing. The mayor touting the success of the program at an apartment building near St. Clair and Vaughan, where the city provided funding to help create more than 20 affordable rental units.
The acquisition fund program is unique in a way, is immediate, is now that you can take people from homelessness or feeling insecure and have their home made affordable forever.
Since the program launched in 2021, the city has provided $165 million in funding grants for 34 projects, creating more than 1,000 affordable rental units.
In sports, the Toronto Raptors have the night off after conjuring up some last-second magic in Orlando.
Walter puts it up.
Jacoby Walter nailed a three-pointer with 0.5 seconds left, giving Toronto a 114-113 victory last night. The Raptors were up by 12 at one point in the fourth quarter. They also beat the Magic 104-102 Sunday in Florida. Toronto hosts the Utah Jazz tomorrow.
For an angle. And get it! A dart! Fabian Zetterlund gets it done. San Jose wins in shootout.
The Toronto Maple Leafs will look to get back in the win column tonight after Monday's 3-2 loss to San Jose. The Buds are in Vegas to face the Pacific-leading Golden Knights. Toronto was on a 4-game winning streak away from Scotiabank Arena. Meantime, the commissioner of the NHL says any negative effect on the Canadian dollar caused by tariffs could be a problem for the league.
All players were, no matter which country they play in, get paid in U.S. dollars. So if the impact of the tariffs is to see the Canadian dollar drop relative to the U.S. dollars, it will make it more difficult and more painful.
Gary Bettman believes the current animosity relates to a policy issue with people in the two countries caught in the middle and hopes it can be resolved soon. He says he has yet to speak to the Trump administration on the tariffs issue.
For me, being a reliever and pitching out of the bullpen, this looks like it's going to be another one out of here.
And the Blue Jays hit 4 runs as they resumed exhibition play today with a game against Pittsburgh. Toronto was down 5 runs at one point and roared back to make it close, but the Pirates did hold on for a 7-6 win.
Just ahead, something new at the Toronto Zoo, just in time for March break. Jessica Smith takes a walk on the wild side, exploring the arrival of animatronics in the African savannah.
Well, just in time for March break, there's something new at the Toronto Zoo.
Visitors are being invited to walk on the wild side by getting a unique look at some of the world's most exotic animals. CTV's Jessica Smith got a preview today.
A new interactive experience at the Toronto Zoo lets you get up close and personal with some unique creatures.
These animatronic animals all through our Africa savanna. And people who visit the zoo know it's a pretty quiet time of the year out in that space. You'll often see the lions, the cheetahs on the warm weather days. So we wanted to add a little bit more.
The new Walk on the Wild Side exhibit at the zoo lets you interact with animatronic lifelike animals you'd find on an African safari.
We talked about options of what we could add, and we wanted to go with something that reflected what you would find in the natural world. So these are African species in the African loop.
This new addition adding another opportunity and a new option for visitors in the colder weather months.
It's one of those pieces that people don't realize. We're open 365 days a year, even Christmas Day, and no bad weather, just bad clothing. And this ability to add something additional to make the most of your day is important.
With something for everyone to see, it's an inclusive way for everybody to enjoy the wildlife at the zoo, real or animatronic, no matter your age or abilities.
We take a lot of pride in this idea of being a zoo for all and this notion of belonging. So from all walks of life, all ages and stages, all levels of ability. This is Toronto and Scarborough Zoo.
The Walk on the Wild Side exhibit here at the Toronto Zoo opens to the public Friday, March the 7th and runs all the way through to May 4th. Jessica Smith, CTV News, Toronto.
And we're going to take one more look at the satellite and radar. Still some rain out there, but the big concern at this hour is the fog. There is a fog advisory in effect for the GTA, near zero visibility being reported at times. And into tomorrow, we are under a winter weather travel advisory. Blowing snow is going to be a concern in many areas too, thanks to some very strong winds. So tricky travel, especially tomorrow morning. Just be aware of that. Here's one more look at the 7-day forecast. Brighter skies into Friday, cooler conditions for Saturday, and then a pretty nice looking start to March break next week. And a reminder, tonight's Lotto 649 Gold Ball jackpot is $24 million, plus the classic $5 million jackpot. You can buy your tickets in-store or at olg.ca. Play responsibly, 18+. Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Lindsay. And that's it for us. But be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a great night.